Welcome back, YouTube friends. So with everything that we wanted to put in the walls, like the plumbing, electrical, gas line, stuff like that, with all that done, we were ready to put up the drywall. And that's what this video is about. I think we'll get the paint in there too and maybe a little bit more. So we started putting in sheetrock and started with the ceiling. Um, my goodness, that's long work. We used the drywall lift to get the 5/8 inch um, reinforced wallboard up to the ceiling. The trusses, because it's a garage, I guess, or maybe this is just normal in any structure nowadays, but they were on 24-inch centers. So I really wanted to use nice stiff drywall to make sure it didn't just ripple and sag. Oh yeah, we got the insulation for the walls, um, knowing that we wanted to put that in before the walls, before we close the walls up. There was a bunch. We used rock wool. It's got a little bit better R value for the space it takes up. But they also say that it's more water resistant and more resistant to pests, which is kind of what sold us on it. It's, I think, easier to work with. I don't know if they say to in the instructions, but I'd really recommend wearing a respirator with it. Anytime we handled the stuff at all, not wearing a respirator, it just ended up coughing and wheezing, and it was unpleasant, if not unsafe. Um, so something to think about. It won't make you itchy like the fiberglass, but I'd wear a respirator with it. Here we go. We got some insulation in. We got some sheetrock on the ceiling. It's starting to look a little bit more like a real space. Putting the sheetrock up was kind of exciting in that way, is that we had been working in here for 3 years already at this point, and but when you put up some sheetrock over a weekend, the place really looked different by the time you came out next time, and so you felt like you were really making some progress. Here's that box. I don't know why this is in this group of pictures. This is that box outside for the antenna cables I mentioned earlier. Here's using that drywall lift. That was handy as a shirt pocket. We bought it for this project and sold it when we were done, and it was cheaper than renting one. And if you're doing more than a sheet or two, boy, I'd say go for it. Rent one or buy one and sell it, and save yourself some hassle. The we had the inspector out. He asked us to put this insulation in the top part of these walls on account of the soffits. I think the idea is to, if there were to be a fire start inside of the wall, to keep it from spreading up into that soffit. In a couple of spots where we kind of had to put like insulation on both sides, ended up having to use like strapping and stuff to keep it from flopping back out of there. We use this, the mold and mildew resistant or whatever sheetrock all through the bathroom. It's not much more money. It's maybe not quite as easy to work with as the regular stuff, but just to be on the safe side, we bought enough to just do the whole bathroom with it, even though I don't think you really have to. I think you just need to use it more where you're worried it might get splashed with water. Here's insulation for the ceiling, and it ended up being a lot of loads of this, and we felt like we about filled up the workroom with it. Oh yeah, okay, now this picture's in order. This I spent a lot more time in the attic again than I thought I would, blowing that insulation in, and with my wife downstairs feeding it into the machine. And we still argue about who had the better end of that job, but I don't think either of us thinks we had it too good. I think if I was going to do that again, I'd think real hard about hiring it done. There we are, dusty as can be. So one of the couple of things we paid somebody else to do was to mud and tape. Um, it would have been an interesting thing to learn. I'm not going to learn it. It's a lot of work, and if you're not good at it, everybody's going to see it. These guys were real pros. I think it only took them like 5 or 6 days to do the whole job, and for what we paid them, it was nothing compared to how much it pushed the project forward in a short amount of time compared to what it would have took us to learn how to do it poorly, do it over. Um, yeah, that's and pretty much everybody I talk to says the same thing. Is like they'll hang sheetrock, but when it comes to mud and tape, and get a pro to do it, and I definitely found that to be worth my time and or worth our money for the time it saved. We were real pleased with the work they did, especially, like this is not a home, this is a garage, and just the level of work was really delighted us to see such uh, nice smooth walls in a space like this. And it was time to sell the drywall lift. I had mentioned that the holding tank leaked. Turns out, we did a little digging, literally, and the tank itself had three holes in the top of it that you could put risers on if you wanted to. And the plugs in those holes were just sitting in them. They weren't sealed up at all, nor was the riser that had been installed sealed to the tank. And so every time it rained, the water just poured in and filled it right up. And so we helped investigate this, but we didn't feel that we were really the experts in the field to be sealing it up right, especially since somebody else had already tried and failed to do this the right way. So we hired a local company to come out and just say, you know what, this isn't right. Can you make it right? And the guy says, yeah, I know how to make that right. So we had him do it. You can see the gap between where the plug was and the tank was just full of mud and dirt and worms and stuff. Everything was just pouring right through there. Here it is after he got done. He even smoothed the dirt out nice for us, which hadn't been as smoothed out before. So my wife loves to paint, which is good because I don't. And so this was the part of the project I think she was most excited about is getting to paint these nice walls. Um, did that before we put trim in because it was an easy time to do it. And as I say, she was eager to do it. There's no lights in the garage side yet. I used LED strip lights or like fluorescent strip lights retrofitted to use LEDs, although actually the fixtures I got were not um, originally meant for um, fluorescence. They came without ballasts, and they came with the tombstone connectors set up to power the LEDs from one end. But they're that style, so I wanted to put those in after the paint was done, rather than ask my wife to paint around them. This is in this picture you can see pretty well how I boxed in that water supply line here as it runs across the ceiling. I just used some plywood and um, little strips of pine in the corners to build a box around it. Before I ran the pipe, I ran a 2x4 across the bottom of the um, trusses, and so that's like the top side of the box, and then the sides of the box are plywood that's screwed into the 2x4, and then the bottom of the box there's little strips of pine and then another piece of plywood screwed or nailed to that. A little bit of trim to cover up the ends of the plywood. You can see my wife getting started on cutting in the color code on the paint. Like this is the bathroom all painted up and the utility sink in already. That was handy for that was as soon as she started painting, I knew it was time to put the utility sink in. You're always needing to go get some water. Painted herself a little too. That's the way it goes. Even went along and painted some of the exposed pecs. I guess you're not supposed to let that stuff get in the sunlight. So we had kept the windows covered up while we were working with it. And this is in a closet, where it's not going to get any sunlight one way or the other. But um, figured it'd look nice with a coat of paint on it. Here's the attic access. Even painted some of the angle iron where the garage door hooks to. And you can see in this picture too, starting to put in the light fixtures in the garage side. Here's with some of those light fixtures lit up. And my wife was able to find some kind of paint. I couldn't tell you now what it's called, but it even sticks to the plastic uh, facing on the insulation in the garage door. And that really helped clean up that space because that nasty yellow, funky plastic that'd been sitting there for years and years and exposed to who knows what. Uh, Fresh coat of white paint on that really made it look new without having to replace it. You can see the difference really in this picture. There it is done. If you enjoyed that, if you did, please give it a big thumbs up. And if this is the kind of thing you're into, I got maybe we're about halfway through now. And so I'm going to have some more videos on this project. And then after that, I think we're going to be putting up an antenna tower and maybe doing some fun ham radio stuff. So I hope you hang around, hit the subscribe button, and there's a little bell next to there too. You hit that, you can set it up so you get notified when I post new videos. You won't miss anything. Till then.